Welcome to Bourbon and Branches and No BS from the center of town, beautifully enough, in the center of town in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And, of course, your host, Susie Woolham.
Good afternoon.
Hello. This is a beautiful day in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Very hot, but a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day. It's going to be a beautiful weekend here.
You know, what we're excited about is how many people are downloading the podcast and subscribing to the podcast, going to the website, some really cool stuff happening.
Yes, we enjoy hearing from everybody and knowing that everyone's enjoying it. For those who have reached out that had questions, I know I've answered you privately, but we would love it if you feel comfortable posting your questions on the page with the episode. I think some of your questions are really good, and a lot of people would enjoy the opportunity to see what you asked because maybe they're afraid to ask themselves. So if you feel comfortable, we'd love it if you do that.
That's a really good point, actually, because I know a lot of people have questions and want to drop off comments and, of course, want to share it with other people. So a really good way to do it is if you're subscribed on iTunes, wherever you're subscribed, to drop off a comment, drop off a question, and certainly give us a good review.
Oh, a good review would be nice as well.
A good review would be nice. Okay, so I hear some beautiful sounds today, and I know we're going to be talking about sound therapy, so I'm very interested in this. I have so many questions.
Well, that's good, because sound therapy is something that I think is really misunderstood by a lot of people, and it's such a wonderful therapy. It's one of the many things that I do in working with the integrative medicine program and in working with all of my clients here. And I think that more people could really benefit if they understood what sound therapy was and they didn't think that it was just something crazy, cowbells being banged on their head or something. So I'm looking forward to helping people understand it a little better too.
I think it's going to be one of those topics where we really put to rest some of the myths about sound therapy and things like this.
And I think that that's definitely a necessity. And I think in some ways in what we talk about today, we're going to kind of ride the line for some people into something that's a little more esoteric than maybe they're used to. But I promise you, everything that we're talking about today is fully rooted, honest to goodness, as far as you can go, in science, in string theory, if you're a string theory person. It's very easy to understand if you understand science and you understand the science behind it. So that's what I hope people will understand today of why we use it as a therapy, not as something that's just, as I hear so often, woo-woo.
A lot of people have questions around things like sound therapy. How did you come about getting interested in using sound therapy as a part of integrative wellness and your practice?
I originally took a class on sound therapy using tuning forks, probably in, my goodness, maybe 1999, 2000. At the time, I was just really interested. I worked in a lot of different methodologies of energy work. And, of course, sound therapy, tuning fork therapy just became a part of sort of that global umbrella at the time. The best part of the story, because everybody likes a good story, right?
Absolutely.
So I had taken a class on tuning fork therapy, and at the time I had a bull terrier. His name was Jake. Those of you who know me know that he was totally my hero. He was the greatest dog. But Jake got into the trash one day and ate some things he shouldn't have, one of them being a corn cob, which made it about 75% of the way through his intestine before it blocked. Long story short, he ended up in an emergency vet situation with surgery. They really didn't expect him to live. He made it through the surgery okay, and so he was going to be at this emergency clinic for a couple days, so I took my tuning forks and I went to the clinic. They allowed me to go back and see him, and he was pretty lethargic, and again, the doctor was standing nearby to tell me that we really didn't have a great outlook because once you cut open the gut. And I said, well, it'll be fine. So I brought the tuning forks out, and I had a stomach fork and I had an intestine fork, and I would just, at first I wasn't putting them on him, I was just putting them near him, and you could see him perk up and he would move toward the front of the cage. And this doctor was very anti what I was doing.
Really?
She had no clue what I was doing, but she was very, very opposed to what I was doing, and she was making a lot of I won't say snide, but definitely some offhanded comments in my direction at what I was doing. So while I was there, a vet tech came walking in with a Doberman, and this Doberman was all puffed up. And apparently it had had some sort of surgery, and they couldn't get it to pee. So they were taking this dog in and out, trying to get it to go to the bathroom, and it wouldn't go. As I'm sitting on the floor working on Jake, and the more I put the tuning forks to Jake, he began to stand up, and the doctor's telling me that he can't stand up. And I said, obviously he can. And he climbed into my lap, and he was perfectly happy as long as I was doing these. You could see the color coming back into his gums. I mean, he was healing in front of us.
Wow.
So this Doberman, at one point, I turned my head, and its nose was right next to my eye, which is not necessarily something you want to see.
Right.
So they were saying, the vet tech was talking to the doctor saying that, they still couldn't get the dog to go to the bathroom. And this dog was very interested in what I was doing. And I said, well, I have a bladder tuning fork here if you'd like me to use it on the dog. And the vet immediately shouted over, no, I wasn't allowed to touch the dog to get the dog away from me. And the vet tech tried to circle the dog away, and the dog went in a complete circle and came right back to my face. When the doctor left the room, she said, could you try? And so I pulled the fork out, and I let the dog smell it, and the dog would rest its nose against it. And I tapped it, and I put it on the dog, and within a few seconds, its whole body started to shake and vibrate.
Wow.
And I said, you should probably take that dog outside. And the vet tech said, no, I tried. And I said, you should probably take that dog outside. And they took her out, and she was able to void her bladder completely.
Wow.
Perked up. Jake made a full recovery within 24 hours. He was out of the emergency hospital. And I guess I never looked back from there. I learned to teach people in the way that I utilize them, which is different than maybe some of the ways that they've seen tuning forks used before. I sort of developed my own methodology based on the many years of doing this. We call it harmonic resonance therapy. Every client who comes in for a massage has tuning fork therapy. Every dog who comes to see me, regardless of their condition, has tuning fork therapy. It just, it works.
That's amazing. Those are really great stories. And my follow-up questions from the stories are, first of all, didn't realize you could take a whole class on tuning forks. How fantastic.
You can take 2 from me.
And then I did not realize that you have a different tuning fork for different parts of the body. I had no idea.
Oh, I have a tuning fork for every muscle in the body.
Wow.
I have a tuning fork for every organ in the body. And then we have one that we'll use in just a minute. It's Om. It's the first sound. Om is the first sound that the earth made. It's the meditation sound that monks make so that they can center themselves and ground themselves. And when you hear this fork, you will understand that sound perhaps for the first time. It's very grounding. It's really centering. It's good for a lot of people who have anxiety disorders, who have anxiety, stress. There have been some studies that have been done with tuning forks on PTSD, certainly a number of studies that have been done with cancer patients just to alleviate their level of stress as they're going through treatment.
So I'm thinking about a lot of people who are not well-versed in this kind of conversation, and people who might think to themselves, wow, that all sounds really interesting. And at the same time, you may have lost me at meditation sounds and Om.
So why does it work?
Why does it work? How does it work?
Sure. That's probably the easiest thing that I can explain to you. So I'm going to kind of challenge you just a little bit, and I'm going to look at you really intensely as I say this. So you, me, these microphones, this table, this room, this building, all of it is a vibration. Everything that is inside of us is a vibration. Healthy muscle tissue vibrates at a certain level. Unhealthy muscle tissue vibrates at a certain level. There's a wonderful study that was actually originally done on, and just ignore the next 3 seconds, on quantum theory testing sound waves. One of the first ways they ever tested sound waves was with tuning forks. From that advancement, they would see how long it took a sound wave to pass through a healthy tissue and through unhealthy tissue. And so these forks are actually formed on the vibration of that tissue. So each one of them, to make it as easy as possible, vibrates at the level of the healthy tissue. So if you have someone who has a stomach dysfunction, whatever it happens to be. If we were to take any type of herbs or supplements or medication to try to rectify whatever that stomach situation was, you're either A, doing the work for the stomach, or B, you're asking the stomach to do something that it's unable to do. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when we utilize tuning forks, because that vibration is the same as healthy stomach tissue would be, it tells the stomach, it tells that tissue that it's healthy, that it's functional the way that it's supposed to be, and therefore it's able to process those herbs or that medication the way that it's supposed to. So we're kind of tricking the body, but not really. But at the same time, we're giving it a little boost and actually giving it a level of health so that it can do its job for that period of time.
Okay.
But everything is a vibration. You can tell exactly how someone's feeling by the tone of their voice. You can tell before you ever see their face. You can tell by the sound that they make. You can tell by the way they breathe. You can tell someone on the radio whether they're having a good day or a bad day. I'm sure that you can tell when we're doing these whether we're rushed or not. Not that we're ever rushed.
No.
But you can tell everything by the sound of someone's voice because it's a vibration. It's their vibration. It's the vibration of their person that their body is able to give off. So utilizing tuning forks or singing bowls is just another way to access that register, that tone, that vibration to balance the body the way that it needs to be.
So when you're talking about getting the sort of body into the place it needs to be, you're communicating sort of with the body and the muscles. And when you're using this tuning fork, you're actually saying, hey, maybe let's relax into this so we can do the right thing. You're communicating with your own body on that vibration. Did I sort of get that?
You're right.
Sort of right.
But not only that, to make it even more confusing, not only am I communicating with the body through that sound, but the body's communicating with itself through its sound.
Right.
Because going back to the stomach, if it's an imbalance in the stomach, that means that quite possibly the entire digestive tract is not working. So if we can bring that stomach vibration up, then we're going to bring the vibration up of that entire digestive tract, which means that the intestines are going to work more effectively, which means that the liver is going to work more effectively, which means that, and it becomes exponential really pretty quickly, because the body then says, oh, well, I don't have to send all my energy here right now. I can focus on something else because this is doing just fine.
That makes sense. So you brought up singing bowls.
A singing bowl.
What is that?
This is a small singing bowl. So this one, can you see? Look, I'm showing it to the microphone.
I know.
So this one is brass. There are ones that are made of gemstones. There are ones that are made of crystals. This one happens to be made of brass, and this is something that I use not only to rebalance someone's energy, but also it lets me check hollow spaces, because hollow spaces create a vibration, right? Where this wall is not going to create a vibration, but a plastic glass or a cup will make a sound. So this singing bowl is 4-inch, and it's used for personal therapy. So I use it to clear a room, to bring an energy level up in a room, and I hope it doesn't blast out your mic, but it comes with this nifty little mallet, and you tap, and then we just run it around the edge like this. And we'll stop.
Wow.
And the firmer that you press, the deeper it gets. You have to understand the balance there, but that changes the energy of an entire space. For somebody who is having difficulty focusing because they're in their head a lot, we actually will sit this on the forehead and run it around, and you really have to warn them when they get up, because they're going to be really dizzy, because the waves vibrate through the whole body. Larger singing bowls tend to be much deeper. This is a tone that I really need for the work that I do, but I've had as many as 3 different bowls on a person at one time, just allowing that vibration to move through their body. And it's fun to watch 3 bowls that don't necessarily match come into sync and create a single tone as they align with the body's energy.
Wow. What do you say to people who are hearing all of that and they say,
She's crazy as she can be.
Right. And they say, like, I don't understand. Like, I don't think stuff like that works.
And the easiest way for me to help them understand that is to look at one of the dogs that come in here. I always say one of the greatest thing about working with an animal is that an animal just wants to feel better. Mm-hmm. It can't tell you what's wrong. It can't tell you why it's wrong, but it just wants to feel better. So I've worked with dogs before. I have one in particular that they really didn't expect it to live more than a couple months. And I would bring out the tuning forks for her and I would lay them on the ground in front of her, and she literally would go over and put her nose on the one that she needed.
Aww.
And Clem is still alive. It's been over 6 years now. Absolutely still alive. But to watch their bodies change, they can't have a doubt. They can't have a misunderstanding. They can't have a question about what's happening. But to watch a dog, and I'm using them in particular just because cats react differently to energy. But
cats react differently to everything.
I was trying to say that nicely. We have had some cats in here. Cats don't do energy work very well, regardless. But to watch the dog who, as soon as you apply it to them, a dog that's having spinal pain, to watch those muscles relax and watch that back relax, to watch them turn around and actually, because it's so instantaneous, it's so powerful, to watch them sort of turn around in a shock because they can't understand what's happening, because, again, they can't explain it to you and I can't explain it to them. But to watch dogs that, as I know you've seen...
I have.
Who are barely able to stand up, barely able to walk, and you use that on them, and they get up and he went walking out the front door.
Yeah.
Just pretty as you please.
I think that was Charlie.
Right. Charlie said, I'm done, I'm out. And his parents weren't really paying a whole lot of attention because Charlie can take about 2 steps and then he sits down. And Charlie went out the front door and was walking down the sidewalk. He was done.
Wow.
After 2 treatments. So it's exciting for me. And I do know that it's crazy. But if you see it one time on an animal, on someone who can't doubt it, you'll never have a doubt again.
Wow. And it makes all the difference in the world, because you're right. An animal will not have disbelief in the situation.
Disbelief. That's the word I was looking for.
Will not have that. Now, what happens when you are working with people and they say, I want to feel better, and people have told me to try this, and I'm not sure if I believe it works. They come in with a disbelief. Does it still work for them?
Absolutely, because it doesn't require anything of them. Again, so take somebody who has a tight muscle. They want to feel better, and we'll make it a little easier. So it's a scapular muscle. So it's something on their back, okay, something around the scapula back there. We won't get all technical. So they're face down, and I'm doing work on them, and they can't tell me that it won't work because they can't see me do it. They don't know till right before I tap the fork that it's going to happen, and then I place it on there, and you watch the muscle tissue as it begins. I'm doing this with my fingers. You watch the muscle tissue as it begins to tighten and relax, as it recognizes that something is happening to it. Mm-hmm. You watch them take a deep breath as they tell you that they really don't believe that this is something that's going to make them feel better. You watch the blood rush to the area. You watch the tissue color up as they start to get some oxygen flow going through there for the first time. You watch trigger points break down. It's going to work.
Wow.
You don't have to believe in it.
That's the good part.
It is the good part.
So you mentioned some of the things that sound therapy is good for. Mm-hmm. It seems, again, kind of almost everything. I mean, you can really you're talking chronic illnesses, PTSD, anxiety.
Absolutely, because everything is sound. So, I mean, and I realize absolutely is like such a huge word. Like I'm saying it's the absolute, but in reality, it is the absolute. And I'll give you an example, and this is certainly not I'm going to turn it around a different way. This is not to dig on anybody else, but imagine for a second, close your eyes unless you're driving. Close your eyes and imagine you're sitting at a traffic light in a fairly country setting, and you can hear the breeze blowing. Maybe you can hear the trees rustling. You can hear birds singing. Imagine what that feels like. And now imagine that somebody pulls up behind you with 4 subwoofers. And imagine how your body feels.
Right.
Just imagine that when you feel that bass thumping in your body, think about your heart, how you feel your heart start to change. You feel your breathing start to change. It's sound, it's vibration. It's the exact same thing that I'm talking about. The only difference being this is a little more tangible. You can see it. Everybody's had that reaction of, oh my gosh, my heart's about to beat out of my chest from... and it doesn't have to be that. It could be walking past a club that has really loud music or walking past a construction site with jackhammers. It's that you start to have that anxiety, that palpitation, because it's not a vibration that works with your body. So these are vibrations that do work with your body.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So when someone's coming in to get sound therapy, is this something they can get, by itself? Does it pair? I mean, you talked about it pairing well with massage.
I use it with all the therapies I do here. So if somebody is getting reflexology, they get it. If someone's getting a massage, they get it. But I have had people who have just come in for sound therapy sessions. It's really nice, especially following a medical treatment or during a really stressful time, just because it keeps that stress level at a much more manageable level. It's easy to use. We'll find some links. I'll find some links that we can give people if they want to buy their own set of tuning forks. Certainly, they're easy to use. You really can't misuse them. When I broke my thumb last year, I knew I broke my thumb because I used a tuning fork to check it. This is public service announcement. Never do that unless you know that it's not broken, because it's incredibly painful.
Oh, no.
It is. But that's how doctors used to check for a broken bone, is they would actually use a tuning fork on it because it's so incredibly painful. So tuning forks have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not like it's a new therapy. It's just new in the sense that people now look at it as something that's very woo-woo and esoteric. They don't look at it from that doctors used to use it for checking for broken bones or to check and see if someone was having a blockage in their intestine or in the stomach, again, because that sound wave, you can hear the difference in it.
Interesting. So this was the trendy thing before x-rays. And
it was the trendy thing before x-rays, and that was the reason that I thought it was a really good idea, because I don't like x-rays. It was a bad idea. But coming off of that for a second, I want you to hear this. This is the Ohm fork. This is something that I use constantly for clearing a space or clearing a client, or when they come in and they're super anxious, they just sat in traffic for hours and hours. This is a nice way for them to kind of bring it back down to my level.
Recenter, is that?
Everything.
Ground yourself and
all of the
that.
above.
Okay.
All the above. So I have a fancy rubber tapper. It's over there. But my knee works really great. So this is what it sounds like in the air, and then if you can still hear it, that's what happens when the stem is touched to the skin. But it's a vibration that brings the body back to the very first sound that the earth ever made. It's the sound it's that primordial sound. It's that sound that we relate to, and everyone relates to, because it's where your body came from. It's the sound of in utero. It's the sound of cellular division. It's the sound of life itself.
Talk about grounding yourself. Good gracious.
I'm all kinds of fancy.
That is fantastic.
It is. And it's a lot of fun, and it's fun to watch people who have never had it done before, and they think that it's going to be something really, really strange. Mm-hmm. And, unless they're really paying attention, if I have the music on, they may not even hear it. They'll feel it. Mm-hmm. But they may not even notice until later. And I will have people who, especially ones that work here locally, and they'll be like, you know what, my knee's been hurting. Could we let's just grab the joint one and just tap it. And my UPS man used to stop in once or twice a week in the summer and just let me do the tuning fork on his knee, and he could go back and do his job really well.
This is literally a wellness garage that you pull into. And I just want to tell you how I'm picturing this whole thing. You pull into and you get the tune up, and it's exactly what you need. And, you know, when your check engine light's on or whatever the case may be, this
Every
is the
3,000
place.
miles, bring it into Susie.
Come on, right?
That should be my new slogan. That would be so fun.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It would.
So sound therapy, I'm assuming, also pairs well with a nice bourbon.
I know that you appreciate my esoteric nature when it comes to our bourbon selections.
I do.
But tonight, I may take you to a whole new level.
Uh-oh.
So, because we're talking about sound therapy, the bourbon that I have selected for us tonight is actually called, and I'm going to hold it up here and show you. You can't see it, but I think you'll appreciate the label. This bourbon is called Blackened. This is actually an American blended whiskey. It's not a bourbon today, but it had to be done because Metallica, I love them. I just want to bite them.
Oh no,
Metallica. It's okay, guys. In a good way, not like in a not like. I just want to bite your chin and say thank you for everything you've done for my life. We'll move on. So Metallica has partnered with master distiller Dave Pickerel of Whistle Pig, and they have designed Blackened bourbon. Now, this is finished in black brandy casks. Why, you say, Susie, yes, it's Metallica, but what does that have to do with sound therapy? The vibrations will activate the whiskey molecules in a different way. This one happens to be batch number 93 that we are experiencing today.
Wow.
The playlist that we are having is by Robert Trujillo. I enjoyed this one more in a cocktail. And so today what I have created for you is a fabulous bourbon hibiscus tea combination. It's sort of a Arnold Palmer.
It's very
on Metallica.
Summer-like. Yeah, it's very summer-like with like that mint on the end, and
right.
It's very nice.
We're having a good time with it. So, hibiscus sweet tea, pick up the Metallica Blackened. It's the one that's got the soundy, wavy things on the front. And remember the limitations of the human understanding through the never.
So put that in your glass. You've been listening to the podcast Bourbon, Branches, and No BS, brought to you by the Center of Town.